Hi, I'm Dawar and you're watching RPTV. On Monday morning, February 9th, 2026, in the press gallery at Toronto City Hall, housing advocates, tenant leaders, and community representatives gathered to challenge what they say is a significant underreporting of evictions within Toronto community housing. Led by Walied Khogali Ali, co-chair of the Regent Park Neighbourhood Association and a member of the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Advisory Committee, the press conference aimed to correct eviction figures using newly compiled data from Tribunals Ontario that was obtained by Ali using the Freedom of Information Act. The data, advocates say, contradicts numbers released by Toronto Community Housing Corporation or TCHC earlier this year. According to Tribunals Ontario records, more than 600 eviction orders were issued in 2023 involving TCHC properties, a figure substantially higher than the 162 evictions reported publicly by TCHC that same year. Advocates argue that similar discrepancies appear in the two previous years. The timing of the press conference was deliberate. It took place a day before Toronto City Council began deliberations on the 2026 municipal budget. Speakers say the way eviction data is tracked and publicly reported has direct consequences for how resources are allocated, particularly for eviction prevention programs in social housing. Advocates contend that when evictions are minimized or obscured in public reporting, the scale of displacement is misunderstood, prevention efforts are underfunded, and harm to tenants become normalized. They argue that transparent, race-disaggregated data is essential to rebuilding public trust and ensuring accountability. Speakers also pointed to what they describe as a broader policy imbalance in city's proposed 2026 budget. While the Toronto Police Services Board has approved a $1.43 billion operating budget request, a 7% increase over the last year, advocates say comparatively modest investments in eviction prevention could stabilize families before crises escalate into shelter use, emergency service calls, or involvement with child welfare systems. Advocates say that consequences are especially visible in neighborhoods like Moss Park and St. Jamestown and other surrounding areas, where large concentration of social housing mean that eviction trends have ripple effects across entire communities. When families are displaced, it disrupts children's schooling, weakens tenant networks, and places added strain on already stretched community services. In dense, high-needs neighborhoods, even a modest increase in evictions can translate into a greater shelter demand, heightened housing instability, and deeper cycles of poverty, outcomes that residents and local organizations say could be mitigated through earlier intervention and transparent reporting. Many TCHC tenants, they argue, are excluded from rent bank assistance due to restrictions tied to Ontario Works or Ontario Disability Support Program, leaving some residents without access to basic prevention tools. Prevention is not only more humane, it is fiscally responsible, Ali said, emphasizing the long-term social and economic cost of displacement. At the core of Monday's message was a call for greater transparency, race-based analysis, and meaningful investment in keeping tenants housed before eviction becomes inevitable. You're watching RPTV News. Let's jump into the press conference.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. My name is Walied Khogali Ali, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Regent Park Neighborhood Association. I want to, first of all, thank all of you for joining our important press conference that's focused on the eviction crisis in social housing, a pipeline to homelessness. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to go through an analysis of evictions from social housing between 2020 to 2050. But before we get into the data, I want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat's people. And we're now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also want to acknowledge that we are all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in the generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery, and we pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent. It is not, this data should not be treated lightly, especially because we're in the midst of Black History Month, and we acknowledge there is systemic anti-Black racism. And when we go through this data, we will understand the impact of systemic anti-Black racism. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just share with you the data that was released by Toronto Community Housing. This was released on January 5th, and there was a news story, I think CTV, CP24, and a couple other media outlets covered this story, and it speaks to how in 2025, the data that was released from January 1st to 2025, there was 391 households that were evicted, and that is a record high. It's a 10-year high. So this was the public data. This was the public data that was released by Toronto Community Housing, and you can tell that between 2020 to 2022, though there was a moratorium in place for evictions from social housing. So the numbers were 86, then 45, and then it started creeping up to 126 in 2022, and then went to 162, 237, and 391. You can tell that about a third, if not a half, of the evictions are non-arrears. So this is non-rent related evictions, and this is an interesting trend we're going to be talking about next. Now, before this data was released, I filed a Freedom of Information request to the Tribunals Ontario to ask specific questions related to applications made by Toronto Community Housing to the Landlord and Tenant Board. So what I'm going to be doing next is share the data, the big reveal that was released by the Tribunals Ontario with regards to applications that were filed by Toronto Community Housing to the Landlord and Tenant Board. So let's go with the next slide deck. Well, if I'm gonna bring this here, please, let's put it here. We're gonna put it just so there's a comparison here for folks to see. Now, it's clear based on the numbers that Toronto Community Housing has underreported the evictions that are happening across the city of Toronto, and I'll explain why. According to Tribunals Ontario, there's a couple of things that you should be worried about. One, the number of applications for evictions has actually skyrocketed. And in 2023, it was the worst year for TCHC tenants. 2023, we had more evictions, we had more applications for evictions, and we had the least amount, well, in comparison to other years, we didn't have many applications resolved through the mediation or consent orders. So not a lot of evictions were resolved before the tribunal ordered the evictions. Now look at the numbers. In 2025, instead of 391, it's actually 541. Take that in. 541 households. That could, if on average there are 3 individuals living in a household, that's almost over 1,500 individuals that were evicted from social housing. The number of applications for evictions also rose. Well, it was 674, but in 2023 it was its worth at 792. And the good news, the one good news, is we did have a lot more, better than 2022 and 2023 and 2024, we had more applications resolved through mediation. So that's some good news that came out of this data. So we're going to go to the next slide. So why are we here? We're here because we know City Council will be reconvened tomorrow, and we would like to have a moratorium now. So we are calling for an immediate citywide moratorium on evictions from social housing. And we are encouraging City Council to take a clear and principled stand against homelessness by implementing an immediate moratorium on evictions from social housing. We are still waiting on the disaggregated race-based data from Toronto Community Housing that could speak to who's being evicted. And we do not want this crisis to get worse. This is a policy decision. City Council, at its meeting this week, starting tomorrow, could put forward a motion to call for a moratorium on evictions from social housing, and in fact, mandate its subsidiary, Toronto Community Housing, to implement it right away. So this is one decision that the Mayor, Olivia Chow, and members of council can take to be decisive in stopping the eviction of, from social housing. Next one. So I wanna, before we move on to the next slide, I wanna provide a brief analysis. From 2020 to 2025, even using TCHC's own data, evictions have exploded, while the number of households have gone down. So there's an interesting piece of information. We're housing less people in RGI or within social housing, specifically at Toronto Community Housing. So that's something that folks should take away. Evictions from social housing have increased by more than 100% in just 2 years, alongside the persistence of hidden evictions. So these are sort of evictions where family members are coerced to remove other family members from the lease. And there's also informal displacement that has not been tracked in the official statistics. Evictions trigger homelessness, family separation, and long-term trauma. And we need to understand that social housing evictions are actually preventable. We actually have more of a say in what happens in our social housing communities because it's publicly funded and owned. And 2023, I want you to note this, was the worst year for TCHC tenants. I want to emphasize this is a policy choice. Next one. So our final remarks before we hear from tenants who are impacted by evictions. Social housing is intended to provide permanent stability for people with the lowest incomes and highest needs. Increasingly, however, it is functioning as a pipeline to homelessness. That is not a failure of tenants. I want to emphasize this. This is a policy failure. It's a failure of bad policy and a policy that has not been updated. And I want to center this conversation on recommendations that were adopted by City Council. Specifically, an investigation was conducted by the Ombudsperson's office, and there was a tragic death of a senior, specifically highlighted in the Al Gosling inquiry. And it's a stark reminder of what is at stake. My friends, eviction is not an administrative outcome. It's a life-altering event that can have fatal consequences, particularly for seniors, people with disabilities, and those living in poverty. Now, I want to encourage you also to fill out our Empowered Tenant Survey, and there's a bit.url link right there that you could visit. We're also going to put the QR code later on, but we're collecting the real life experiences of tenants right now to better inform policymakers at all levels of government, municipally, provincially, and federally, that we need better safeguards for tenants, and we need them now. So I want you to be mindful that this survey is out there, so please do share it with your friends, family, and neighbors. Move on to the next one. So I'll leave this final slide deck here. The deadline for the survey for you to submit that survey is March 16th. We have 17 questions in 13 languages, 13 commonly spoken languages across the city of Toronto. We're giving out a $50 raffle prize. So please be part of this important conversation and share your thoughts.
Walied has clearly revealed a large discrepancy between the data that TCHC presented versus what he obtained through the Tribunals Ontario, which shows a significantly higher number of evictions. The numbers of household evictions presented by TCHC for 2024 is 237. The number found in Ontario Tribunal's record is 610 evictions. For 2025, the number presented by TCHC is 391. The number found in Ontario Tribunal record is 541. It should be noted that Ontario Tribunal does not explicitly show the number of eviction orders, but it shows the number of eviction applications, the number of applications withdrawn by TCHC, and the number of applications that were resolved through mediation. By deducting the number of applications withdrawn by TCHC and the number of applications resolved through mediation from the total number of eviction applications, Walied was able to find the numbers he showed in the press conference. Regent Park TV reached out to Toronto Community Housing for clarification regarding the discrepancy in the eviction figures. In a written statement, Kimberly Moser, manager of external communications for TCHC, said the difference reflects how eviction data is recorded. She said, Toronto Community Housing's primary work is day-to-day delivery of affordable housing for nearly 100,000 tenants living in every corner of our city. TCHC files more eviction applications with the Landlord Tenant Board than are actually enforced. This is the difference in the numbers. As our main goal is to keep people housed, tenancy management staff continue to work with individuals and family-facing evictions for arrears right up until the day of eviction. For arrears file, our hope is to save the tenancy and enter into a repayment agreement for the balance owing. When this happens, a case is filed with the LTB, but there is no eviction. Therefore, it is included in the LTB numbers but not in TCHC's. Neighborhoods such as Moss Park and St. Jamestown are particularly vulnerable to impacts of eviction because the high concentration of social and high-density rental housing in these communities. When eviction rates rise in areas where many residents already face economic insecurity, the effects are felt not just by individual households but across entire neighborhoods. Evictions can separate families, force children to transfer schools mid-year, and sever long-standing community ties. For some residents, displacement can also lead to episodes of homelessness or reliance on shelter system, compounding instability in communities that are already navigating poverty, housing precarity, and limited access to resources. Now let's hear from former TCHC tenant Reem Saad and her great aunt, as they and others talk about their stories dealing with eviction.
Now I'm going to invite some tenants who have been evicted from social housing to share their story. So I'm going to invite Reem to join us first. Reem, you want to join us? And I'll introduce Reem, and she can share her wonderful, sort of tragic story. But I have been supporting Reem.
Thank you.
And Reem, Fatma, thank you for coming. Reem was evicted with her mother, Zulekha, who is with us as well. Thank you, Zulekha, for joining us. We appreciate you. And they were evicted from social housing when Reem was actually in the hospital in a coma. There was a Landlord and Tenant Board meeting where TCHC moved a motion to evict. Shame. Of course that's shameful. What's more shameful is after I met with the representatives of Toronto Community Housing to share the facts, the details of the case, their response was unprofessional and lacked empathy. What I mean by that is they insisted that Reem and her mom pay $35,000 to be put back on the waiting list for social housing.
Shit.
Not to be housed, but to be back on the waiting list and to be penalized for damages caused to the building and elevator that their own commercial insurance could pay for.
Yep.
And they had nothing to do with it. So there are many stories about Reem and Zulekha that are out there that are undocumented, and we need to hear directly about the impact of eviction. So Reem, if you could just share, come here and just share with us what this eviction has done to you and your family.
What has it done is, for me, I just feel like everything just got taken away from us. We lost our home, we lost our cats, we lost a lot of furniture. And you guys know how the economy is now. Buying stuff. Buying stuff now is not as it was back in the day. Everything's so pricey, everything's expensive. It just took a lot of troll on me and my family because like we lived there for over 20 years. 22 years we were there. We lived in the 60th floor first, and then they moved us to the 12th floor because that apartment used to have very bad leaks. To the point is when it was raining, the whole third bedroom, the furniture, everything would get destroyed. And then we got to the 12th floor, everything was okay. We lived there for 10 years on the 12th floor. And I was a very big part of the community, of helping my community too.
So Reem has received not just certificates from Toronto Community Housing acknowledging your great contribution to your community. But Reem, are you just because people may not appreciate what you're going through in this winter, are you right now looking for a shelter?
We are trying to, but what the problem was the shelter, like it's me, my mom, and my brother.
Yes.
My brother, he has his own health issue, but because he's 34, I'm 30, like they want to separate us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna be hard for my brother to be able to do things by himself.
Exactly.
Because he relies on me and my mom to help him, to get him to his appointments, to do things for him too.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you for sharing that story. We're now in the midst of a process to try to house both Zulekha and Reem. There's a lot of folks who are in the shelter system that are not living in social housing. And it's really important for us to ask the important questions as to why less people are living in social housing right now. Evictions are at a record high, and there's no policies and investments in the city budget to better support the most vulnerable tenants. Okay, so I'm going to ask everyone to come and join us, and then we'll see if anyone wants to say anything. Go ahead, come on, let's all come together, and we'll take questions from the press. Come, Fatma, if you want to share something, go ahead.
I want to share that this Zulekha and her daughter and her son.
Come closer here. Yeah.
Zulekha and her daughter and her son, they have issues. For the last year, she had coma for 2 weeks. This, in the same year, she got again operation for 8 hours in the Sunnybrook. And it was like, for them to be like homeless, this is insane. They need to have somewhere, somebody who has a major surgery with, right now she has 7 screws and a plate in her neck
Yeah.
and halfway. Now to stay like either my friend, they cannot go stairs, my home is stairs, they have to go to friend's home. And when they go to friend's home, she has 1 basement down, 1 bedroom, and that place is too tight. She couldn't come.
I know, I understand that. And I think it's really important to appreciate that when tenants are going through medical challenges, Toronto Community Housing should not be going to the Landlord and Tenant Board to evict. They should be doing a welfare check. They should be taking steps to actually prevent the eviction. And it's happening to the most vulnerable tenants. So Fatma, thank you for that important reminder. Okay, and I know we've got Shahan, we've got Diana here, we've got David Walsh, we've got a lot of folks here. So we're gonna take some questions, but my friend here, would you like to quickly introduce yourself and speak to why you're here today?
Sure, go ahead. Thank you. Good morning. Very, very disturbing news. And I think we're all here for the same cause. And thank you for allowing us to hear the pain and to see the struggle, because it is very real. And thank you for this data that allows us to be able to galvanize our support and rally around data, because that's what is going to move the needle. So my name is DeWitt Lee III. I'm a board member of the Little Jamaica Land Trust, a newly formed board that is focused on securing and preserving not just the history of Little Jamaica here in Toronto, but of course the people who made that history and the generations of history makers and families that call Little Jamaica home. And so we stand in solidarity with all the efforts across this city to make sure that the residents in each of our respective wards has the safety and the security that they deserve, to be able to get the most basic need, which is housing. And you know, we're not even talking about the quality of housing at this point, right? Like, we're so focused on talking about housing that we haven't even got a chance to talk about the conditions of the housing, you know, and how people suffer. Even though they have housing, they suffer. So thank you for allowing us to hear the sentiments of many, many tenants who are enduring mold and all kind of other unsafe things in their home, but they're tolerating it because the alternative is outside.
Exactly.
And so I think the timing of this call to action to our city council is pivotal because of the conditions of outside right now. Everyone understands how ungodly cold it is right now. And we are concerned about those who are in the streets. And you said something, sir, about making sure this doesn't get worse. And this can happen. It can get worse, and it will get worse if we don't intervene. So I think this is a sensible and humane act that our council can do, should do, and if not, we are going to have record of that, and we're going to have more data. And that's the data that we're looking for. So we want to find out who's on the right side of humanity, who's here to represent the most vulnerable of their constituents, and that's going to happen starting tomorrow. So I just want to thank you for allowing this opportunity to be here.
Thank you.
I heard about your cats.
Yeah.
It broke my heart because I was thinking about the pets. And I know they don't have a lot of data for that, but it is important as well. So for all the animal shelters in our community, the food that these are family members to them.
They were my kids.
Of course they're your kids. We understand that. We understand that. So it's important for us to look at the full scope of who's being impacted and who's vulnerable. So thank you for this opportunity. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we're gonna ask my good friend, Brother Shahan Ahya, who's also the president of RPNA, to share some words. Go ahead.
Thank you, everybody. Today we are here for eviction, and our Toronto community housing tenants is suffered a long time. It's not easy for us to see these things happen. So my request to council, mayor and all the councillors, to solve the problem, to solve the issue. We are really suffer. That's what my news to council. And thank you everybody to join here. And thanks to Walied, he worked very hard for these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahan. And I just want to acknowledge that we have members of the Crisis in the City Network. Miss Mark, thank you for joining us.
Ms. Mark, join us.
And the Crisis in the City Network has actually been doing a phenomenal work in being on the ground, supporting the most vulnerable members of our community, especially the folks who are unhoused. And there was a great project, the RV project, that just was launched not too long ago. And I'd love for Ms. Mack or David or Dana to speak to the importance of not being reactionary, but being proactive, right? We're calling for something that is so doable. During the pandemic, City Council passed a motion to have a moratorium on evictions from social housing.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
It happened in the pandemic. It can happen now.
Yes.
And we want City Council to act now.
That's right.
By making sure that this housing crisis does not get worse, where we have a pipeline from social housing to the encampments, to homelessness, and to the crisis that will impact everyone, including our healthcare system, every aspect of it. So I'd love for Ms. Mack maybe to share some words.
Please. Yeah, thank you so much. Crisis in our city actually advocates for the homeless and those people who are unhoused. We seek two things, temporary and durable solution. Temporary because the situation is getting worse, because the weather is bad, and we need more warming centers to open, and also durable solution, finding them a durable housing for everyone who's unhoused, especially the refugees and asylum seekers who are already in the shelter system for over 2 years.
Well said. Thank you. Okay, now we'll take questions from the press. Diana, go ahead. Go ahead, Diana.
I just want
Diana Ali.
I want to add one very important fact for a privileged country like Canada, for an amazing province, and for this huge city where we are so diverse. We have forgotten the most important essence of why we're here. Poverty and housing is a human right. It's not a basic right either. It's a human right. And we, as a privileged country, should never, ever allow anyone to be on the streets or to be unhoused. So I commend our great group called Crisis in the City, David Walsh, a champion with Ms. Mack and many, many others. I hope you will all gather with us to make sure no one is left on the street or who is in poverty. For those who had to actually bear up with this unfortunate 30-something thousand ream, we should be in a situation where there should be funding so no one will ever have to be in a situation where they are now looking for housing elsewhere.
They can't find housing. They're permanently banned from social housing. That's
Just
the
like
issue.
to reinforce,
Go ahead, David.
just like to reinforce one of the points that Walied made is that we need mediation. Taking everything to the Landlord and Tenant Board is not the way to deal with these issues for very vulnerable people. So, really encourage City Council to strengthen the mediation process.
Excellent. Thank you so much, my friend. Yes, especially when TCHC is owned by the City of Toronto. They at least could be part of the solution to prevent these evictions from getting worse. So I don't know if there's more questions. You want to say something, Miguel? Okay, Miguel wants to say something. Go ahead, brother.
Thank you, Waleed, for this opportunity to share the experiences of tenants from Regent Park that have been evicted. I'm one of them, by the way. I have an N6 notice, all because I damaged a door. Can you believe it? I damaged one door. It was an accident, and that's the reason they want me, an indigenous man, out of Regent Park, out of TCHC, and I won't be able to come to City Hall anymore.
Okay, thank you. You're already here.
You're already there all the time. Just want to remind them about the survey.
Go ahead.
Well, just wanted to remind everyone about the survey because your message is important. And this survey is designed to amplify your situation. We're encouraging all those across the City of Toronto. Even if you know someone, are you able to contribute to the survey?
Anyone in the City of Toronto can fill out that survey.
So we encourage you to add your voice to the many voices being heard today. It's very important, especially with the, speaking on behalf of the Little Jamaica community, with the introduction to the LRT. We know that obviously is a boost for business, but it also means a boost for rental rates. And we're gravely concerned about what it's going to do to those to be able to maintain living there and continue operating their business there. So we hope this can even be extended beyond March, because this is a platform and a medium that the people must have so that we can fight on your behalf.
Thank you. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Can I add something?
Yes, you want to add something? Go ahead. Come here.
Thank you so much.
This is
Because
the
I'm
opportunity
not
for
living
community
in
voices.
Regent Park. I am from the Keel and Wilson west side, where the Al Gosling, we have to pay tribute to the death of that, and we have the inquiry also. Whatever the Justice Patrick has given the recommendation, at this moment Toronto Housing Company is going the opposite to that. I am the person that go through the research that how they are behaving with the tenants and how they are building cases. And I'm only in this room, my girl is knowing me because I'm a 33 years tenant leader. After 19, those people, they are either they are gone or they are not alive, but I am luckily alive this moment. What I am going through for the last 8 years because of the target, at the beginning I was having a capacity and I was volunteering that how they are behaving. Okay, you build a case against me and I will watch that how they are behaving, because we attended all consultations 33 years and I have watched the regime which was working and which was not working and why now it's not working. So we need to work out for that, because 3 people from the council, from the city landlord, they are representing there and they are watching what is going on there and what is going on me now, because at the beginning, as I said that I volunteer in, okay, I watch how you can behave like this, like that. So to research that, and after consulting with the then Vice President faculty, because everything starts from the maintenance and repair, and then they attack on the tenancy files. Why their tenancy files is concerned when I am behaving, I am paying the rent, it's nothing. I need my repair or repair why they leave not good in condition, because they target that this repair is not there. At this moment, I face the rent area also which was false, manipulated. And I challenge me at every stages, every there. 5th January, this report came, this one, and the director program now, this was manager from Human Rights and Solution also. The point is that she lied whatever the statement she is doing. I am the proof, because when they make a rent area case against me, I challenge, because my record, I am a qualified person and I am working as tenant leader and interpreter with the housing company since 1970, 1996 and 7. Anti-ableism committee to right now. No, I am history and person only life, and luckily 3rd attempt to kill my tenancy and myself also. At this moment I am homeless.
I'm so sorry.
I am homeless but paying 2 rents. Because I cannot go to street, I am a person with my dignity, I have to keep respect. They install my flooring in my apartment and they put the glue in that tiles which was not approved by me, which was not, and knowingly that I am an environmental strategist. That spoiled my health immediately and I was in the emergency 3 times.
Sorry.
And then I asked them to stop, but they are saying that we have proof that we will do it whatever we want. They approved the scope of work to enter in my apartment, to control my apartment. Now after this, I spent 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks in ICU. And during that time, because I was dead and still at this moment, if gas inhaling effect on your health, you cannot be recovered. I am 40% dead, 60% alive with the grace of God and with my tenants.
I'm so sorry.
We are very sorry.
And during that time, my tenant leaders, because I am working with the tenants and my girl, and 2012 we did a training together with the Toronto Housing Company, and we were a speaker bureau person, and I and he and one lady more, Mr. John, she died. So we were a speaker bureau to organizational development. We have a CD also, they have made Toronto Housing Company. The best regime was Mr. Drake time, who was just listening. Even every time we have a AGM meeting every year and tenant retreat in exhibition hall and everything, we were doing that. In one AGM, in 2000, like, yeah. So the senior person was coming a little bit on a walker, and he was talking with me. I was interpreter at that time. He immediately said, put us back, and he went to that miss. How can we help you? she was living in Dufferin and St. Clair, and I was 30 years, I'm having a capacity and a young person. Still, I'm now dying inside. My heart is burning with inflammation. If you see my chart, CT scan chart, but still I want to give that way, that now the tool they are using is to use the third degree toxic material in your apartment if they don't like and they want to take your apartment, and that is not killing your tenancy, killing you people also.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a new thing, and I research. I have
Thank you so much.
400 pages there.
Yeah.
Now I'm living. They didn't give me an alternative arrangement. My doctor write that to remove the toxic material. OT came and occupational. They said remove the tent. 4 months I am staying with my friends who offer me a room. I am paying their rent and they are charging rent.
Understood.
And under rule.
Yeah,
under rule-
understood. We're just gonna end the conference
Yeah.
soon, but I appreciate all the details you've given us about
Yeah.
your
I
scenario.
have all
And many
proof.
tenants just like you. You're not the only one, by the way, that I've spoken to that are dealing with all these challenges within TCHC, especially when it comes to their health.
Yeah.
Not trusting Toronto Community Housing. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there. So thank you for sharing your story
The
today.
point is LTB cases should be stopped social housing because they have rent
Moratorium,
areas.
exactly.
Rent areas, they have no jurisdiction to pass the order for eviction, but they are doing because they have no jurisdiction for accounting. The way they made rent area, I challenge that this is wrong, and I have the service scandal letter, but they were not saying, they said that that is a different issue. We have no jurisdiction.
Understood.
So-
So we all agree here. Everyone in this
Yes.
room agrees we need a moratorium
Now.
on evictions, right? We
Yeah.
want it to end now.
Yes, yes.
Everyone here agrees that, and that's why we're here. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that came to join us today to speak. I know this is a very important topic, and people have been waiting for an opportunity to speak. So we've had a lot of tenants speak. We've had community leaders speak. We've spoken to the data that were released by Tribunals Ontario, data that was collected by the Landlord and Tenant Board, and we spoke to the importance of investing through the city budget this week
Yeah.
in eviction prevention, but also a policy. We're starting tomorrow, but this week, eviction prevention, but also passing a motion to ask Toronto Community Housing to implement a moratorium on evictions from social housing, from TCHC.
There is a lot of
Thank you.
The conference concluded with a Q&A with the press. Let's hear some of the questions.
So now we're going to take questions from the media, and we'll conclude our press conference after that.
Really, just two quick questions. One is, are you calling for a permanent moratorium, like in perpetuity, or just for a certain amount of time?
Excellent question. We're calling on a moratorium until we understand the impact of the evictions that are happening across the city of Toronto. Specifically, we are waiting on disaggregated race-based data. How could we trust our public institutions? My friends, we just had a big scandal with Toronto Police Services because of all the corruption that's going on. And they're getting $93.8 million in permanent funding with no conditions, right? Why is it acceptable for the most vulnerable tenants of our community to be evicted while Toronto Community Housing underreports the level of evictions and is not working with stakeholders, with the Regent Park Neighborhood Association, with members of the Crisis in the City Network, with everyone that is involved to prevent these evictions from getting worse. So we are not calling for permanent. We know that there's some cases where evictions happen. So for example, if you're arrested, charged, and convicted, you will probably not be able to use that unit, and that unit should be made available for someone else. But we also know that housing is a prerequisite even when it comes to reforms. So for example, if you're on probation, the judge or the courts are not going to say, take away this person's housing, right? And we know when you lose housing, you live less, you're less likely to get a good job. So it's a human right. So we need to stand by our values and implement a moratorium right away before it gets worse.
And just a follow-up, this budget does include an increase in the rent bank program to help people make ends meet. Is that something that you'd like to see more of? Is that enough? How do you feel about the rent bank?
Excellent question. Well, tenants living in social housing do not qualify for the rent bank. So thanks to Mayor Olivier Chow, I know that investment is going to help other tenants, and we're appreciative that other tenants are getting those supports, but we need catered supports for Toronto community housing tenants. If you're on Ontario Works, if you're on ODSP, you don't qualify for the rent bank. You're excluded from accessing the rent bank. So the money that's available is not enough to support the most vulnerable tenants living in social housing.
Walied, thanks for coming in. What does the data say about why people are getting evicted? You said it's not all to do with not being able to pay the rent.
Excellent. So I'll point to an interesting example. So let's look at this. According to TCHC's own data, let's look at 2025. About a third is non-arrears, and about 2/3 is arrears. I'll give you an example of an arrears eviction. An arrears eviction is when TCHC claims that Rima and Zuleha owe hundreds of thousands of dollars to the damages caused by another party to an elevator. They consider that arrears, right? In most cases, folks living in social housing do not remit payments directly. They're remitted by the programs that they are enrolled in, whether it's Ontario Works or ODSP. So we should not have arrears evictions in social housing at all, right? So point one, point two that we need to consider is non-arrears evictions, in my opinion, point to systemic reasons that have caused these evictions. I argue that 40%, this is not my data, this is the data released by Toronto Community Housing, 40% of folks living in social housing identify as Black. Most of the people are getting evicted for non-arrear, well, a third actually. That's a huge number in this, and these are not the most accurate numbers. This is just the numbers released by TCHC, right? If you look at the other slide here, one second, it's the one related to the other, yeah, that's the one. This is another interesting slide, and that is, take this one out, just take this one here. If you look at the numbers here, look at how many applications were submitted by Toronto Community Housing for evictions. 741 in 2024, 674 in 2025. There is a spike in applications filed by Toronto Community Housing to evict tenants. We want this to stop, and this is why we're calling for a moratorium on evictions right away, so we could delve into the data and understand the systemic reasons why Black tenants, because I'm talking about almost 1 in 2 tenants in TCHC consider themselves Black, are being evicted from social housing. During Black History Month, I think the mayor and members of council should take decisive action right away.
Yes. She wants to be the next mayor.
Yes.
Can I come up to the mic if you don't mind?
Joanne, you want to say something? Go ahead.
I gotta say something.
Go ahead,
I'm
Joanne.
gonna speak some history here.
Go ahead.
And I first of all want to commend Walied for all of his hard work in Regent Park. Phenomenal. So thank you, Walied, and thank you for all of you that are here today. I'll try and summarize quickly and then make my point. My name is Joanne Warner, born in St. Jamestown, raised in Regent Park. I'm currently an Ontario Works caseworker for Toronto Employment and Social Services. When my father came to Canada in the 60s, he came to Toronto with $100 in his pocket, ended up in the city of Toronto. Within a week, he got a job employed with the city of Toronto, cleaning the streets of Regent Park and Cabbagetown, and we were housed in Regent Park. When me and my mother bought our home 16 years ago, we're homeowners today, I was called a drug dealer because I had a little bit of money in my pocket. When my mom lost her job in 2013 with Zellers, I asked if she could go back on the waiting, if she could go back into housing. They said there's no way she can go back into housing. I had my mortgage, my mom had her mortgage. Mm-hmm. We were in a bind. Mm-hmm. Pipeline to homelessness. We're okay today because by the grace of God. But housing has been we've lived in housing, my brother and my mother and I, for 35 years before we purchased. We all know mold, rats infestation, cockroach infestation that does lead to illness. And when I hear today that black tenants, I'm black like you, are being evicted for no real cause, shame on TCHC, shame on the city for not taking this responsibility to help folks such as yourself. Regarding Ontario Works, the system Ontario Works does not work. I'm a caseworker. We need a system overhaul. When I first started my job at the City of Toronto in 2009, a single person on social assistance received $608, $300 and something odd dollars to pay for rent, $200 and odd dollars to pay for their food. So when you are no longer in subsidized housing, and not just for people who are in subsidized housing, somebody like me who's a homeowner now, or anybody of you here is a homeowner or renter, when you fall through the cracks, your EI is exhausted, and you come to me, my clients, refugees, people coming out of jail, the homeless, none of you here are my clients, but I gotta regurgitate policy. And there's nothing I can do. There is no affordable housing. There hasn't been affordable housing being built since Stephen Harper days, right? So we are in a bind, and we need system change.
Well said.
We need we need a doubling of Ontario Rates or DSP, or we need a whole revamp of the whole system together. So for all of you that are here today, I say thank you. Walied, thank you for keeping up and doing the hard work. And we also need to take care of our, one more thing with Black History Month, we need to take care of our streets. Sackville and Dundas, we need to get that stuff reinstated for our seniors who built up this country. Well, but that's another story for another day. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you
God
for
bless.
speaking from the heart. I'm going to ask Cheryl Case if they want to share some remarks about the implications of investments that are being promised in this budget. Specifically, we know for Toronto Police Services, they're getting a $93.8 million permanent increase. And in our press release, I just want to thank, first of all, Cheryl, for the amazing analysis that was done. But the increase alone amounts to approximately $28.66 per person, while total policing costs are estimated at $482 per person annually. So the investments we're calling for example, in community-led planning, in social development plans, and empowering residents to actually prevent evictions from our community, cost us less than the amount of money that we're investing in incarceration. Cheryl, introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, my name is Cheryl Case, founder and executive director of City Planning. We're a community network based in Toronto, practicing a human rights-based approach to planning in this great country. We're very fortunate to have the knowledge and awareness that housing is a human right, and also we are to have access to good jobs that are meaningful and that help us build and protect the well-being of our neighbors and of our families. So unfortunately, we're in a position here where investment into realizing that and seeing that live through reality is not being put forward. As Walied mentioned, the investment into economic development, social development through community-led planning is grossly underfunded. So we see in social development, economic development, and city planning is invested 4 times less than the policing budget. So policing is about $1.4 billion, whereas those 3 community offices combined are less than $400 million. And so if we were to invest in community-led planning, it would cost less than $24 per person. And what would that $24 per person do? Well, it would actually enable the everyday resident to come together and find out, well, what is it that we need in our neighborhood? Do we want to grow more food in community gardens? Are we looking to build more housing? You know, there's a huge deficit of jobs, but we really need to be able to get people together to spend the time required. And in Canada, in Toronto, we know that there's a lack of investment into housing. Over $2 billion is needed for investment into housing. And how do we unlock those funds? Well, we've seen it through community-led planning. Regent Park is a really great example. I can bring you another one in Parkdale. We saw through the Parkdale Activity Recreation Center, they've had incredible investment into community-led planning, and that has resulted in the city developing the multi-unit residential acquisition program. And so we're seeing now millions of dollars invested every year into the acquisition of affordable housing, preventing then people from being displaced from their homes. This program has been so successful that you actually see it now across the entire province of British Columbia, and at a national level, there's investment for acquisitions of affordable housing. And so investing into communities actually helps to unlock funds. So with $24 per person in investment, we can actually see the economic capacity of the city multiply multiple times, because we'll actually be doing work that builds the city that we need and that we deserve.
Amazing. Thank you, Cheryl. Amazing. Okay, so we'll take one couple last questions. Yep, go ahead.
Who are the key decision makers directly in charge of evictions and eviction reporting, if you know that information? Like, do you know who they are, what boards they sit on, maybe names?
Evictions in Ontario have to go through the Landlord and Tenant Board.
Right.
And so
But from TCHC, sorry.
from Toronto Community Housing, it's the organization as a whole that they hire paralegals to file applications to evict. I've actually supported 29 families fight off evictions by preventing those motions from being considered in a hearing because of mediation, and that's why I pointed to the importance of investing in preventative measures, including mediation. But why is it acceptable? I just want to put this, why is it acceptable in our city that residents are evicted from social housing? How is that speaking to our values as a city? How is it a progressive city? How is a progressive mayor and members of council watching? Why are they watching these evictions get worse and not doing anything about it? And this is why we're here today. We want to stop this eviction crisis from getting worse. We are tired of dealing with the human toll, the impact across the board, whether it's folks who are looking for a warm bed to sleep, going to our hospitals and packing our emergency units, whether it's individuals trying to sleep in a church, or it's just getting worse. And we all realize it, and this is why we have so many people here. Look at how many people showed up to this press conference. I've not been to a press conference with this amount of people, right? And it speaks to, this is an issue that the mayor, members of council should act on, that should interest everyone in our city. And if we want to end homelessness, then we need to start talking about solutions that are driven by members of our community, and it starts with this moratorium now. We need a moratorium on evictions now. This meeting, if Mayor Olivia Chow and members of council fail to deliver on a moratorium for evictions, they're contributing to the problem and not being part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Wally.
Okay, so any other questions? We're good to go?
What would you say to someone who thinks that a person who can't pay their rent should get evicted even if they live in community housing?
Well, that's an excellent question. Well, I think there are ways by which we can unpack that question. First of all, if someone is not able to pay their rent and they're living in social housing, they're probably part of a program, Ontario Works or ODSP. And they're the ones that remit payments to the landlord, which is Toronto Community Housing. So the most vulnerable tenants in our city don't pay rent directly. So just to answer your question. But we need to end the commodification of housing. We need to end the financialization of housing. This is why we're in this mess. Name me one young person or newcomer or someone who's been working hard day in and day out, taking on multiple jobs, that can afford a $1.2 million home. Name me one. The people that are arguing for the commodification of housing or the financialization of housing are profiting from this model. And we cannot profit from a human right. Housing is a human right, and we need to end this eviction crisis, this pipeline to homelessness, and we must invest in social housing that is accessible, right? Accessible to the various needs in our communities. What do we want?
Moratorium on evictions!
When do we want it?
Now!
Thank you, everyone.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and visit us on all our social media platforms. Please visit our website for more information.